it's great you could be with us for InFocus Recouched. We've got a great program lined up for you. The genius of birds, the importance of vitamin D, and the tough question, is technology working for you and your family, or are you a slave to technology? Kent?
Ooh, it's a good question, that one. What about fashion, though, Dora? Are you a slave to fashion?
No, never.
Well, even if you're not, there are slaves to fashion around the world, and probably not in the way you're thinking. Baptist World Aid is doing something about it. Let's take a look. Well, when you go shopping, do you know where your food comes from, where your clothes come from? Is there perhaps slave labour involved? Is there suffering behind your shopping? Here to help us sort some of these questions out is Gershon Nimbalka from Baptist World Aid. How are you?
Yeah, great, thanks, Kent. Glad to be here.
Now, Gershon, you actually have a finance background. So what ended you up, working with Baptist World Aid, looking at these issues?
Yeah, interesting story. I, going through uni, picked up a traineeship with AMP, working as a financial planner in business development, and started studying some theology and listening to what Jesus had to say for where he wanted my life to go. And found he had a lot to say about poverty and suffering and marginalisation, and a lot to say about greed as well. So me and a group of my friends, after doing that, went and spent some time in Africa living in slums and villages. And
wow.
It was just...
Actually, not just visiting, living there.
Yeah, so 3 weeks, so, probably a visit, I guess, but living amongst it and empathising and understanding with the people, I guess. Terrifying and transformational at the same time. I guess when you see kids that have lost their parents from malnutrition or AIDS or lack of access to things we take for granted, it hits you pretty hard when you see girls that have been raped day in and day out for a lack of understanding or a lack of awareness of the basic rights that we are so used to, or lack of police infrastructure.
Wow.
You get transformed by that. So I came back and decided to hop on another path, and fortunately this opportunity with Baptist World Aid opened up, and I haven't looked back since. It's been amazing. Okay, so you're the advocacy guy for Baptist World Aid. You're not so interested in, you're not so focused on development projects or emergency aid after natural disasters, but you're there sort of speaking out on a number of social issues. Can you just outline those quickly for us? My work sits alongside Baptist World Aid's development work, and it's the advocacy education component of it. So trying to get people really fired up about issues of injustice that I think are on God's heart as well. So we look at issues of poverty, and through that it's aid, how it's directed and how much our government is giving. Is it giving its fair share? The quick answer is no to that at the moment. Tax evasion and corporate responsibility, because it turns out that developing countries lose more from tax evasion than they receive in aid every single year. Wow. So it's a really significant problem. We also look at labour rights, so particularly slavery through Stop the Traffic. We do a lot of work with them in chocolate and recently more so in fashion. And then we have our own ethical consumerism campaign, which we call Behind the Barcode. So that's the sort of stuff that we're talking about today, I guess, with what's the fashion industry doing, what's the electronics industry doing. Yeah. Now, you just a little while back, you released this ethical fashion guide, and actually looking at particular companies. When you go down to your shopping mall there, you're looking through all the specialty shops selling women's clothes, men's clothes, or whatever, that they're listed here, and you've given them a grade between A and F for how ethical they are. How did you come up with those grades? Yeah, so we actually put these companies through a survey system of about 60-odd questions, and that looks at things like what policies they have in place, how well they know their suppliers, do they know their suppliers, what monitoring systems they have and what is the quality of that, and then what worker rights protections do they have in that. So are they paying their suppliers a living wage? Are they making sure there's a good grievance mechanism in place? So all those sorts of things. And we also asked some specific questions around really well-known abuse areas like Uzbekistan and their production of cotton. We looked a bit at the Bangladesh Fire and Safety Accord, and also... Yeah, Bangladesh has been in the news quite a... Certainly has been. Recently, fires and deaths. It's, Yes, and I mean that Rana Plaza collapse, which was the second biggest industrial accident in the world, the biggest since Chernobyl. So absolutely terrifying. No, but back to Uzbekistan, because some of our viewers might even be thinking, is that even a real place? I mean, it's not a place we hear a lot about. What's going on there with cotton production, did you say? Yeah, it's actually a really important place in the world. It's a former Soviet state and one of the biggest cotton producers on the planet. So they're about the 5th biggest exporter of cotton. It's run by a guy named Islam Karimov, president of Uzbekistan, but he's really a dictator, and he runs the place like it's his own personal piggy bank. So he forces tens of thousands, up to hundreds of thousands of children out of school and into the cotton fields to work in the absolute most horrendous conditions. No access to clean water, so they're drinking polluted water, getting injuries. Some are committing suicide because they're under such intense pressure to hit these cotton quotas. Nightmare state.
Well, so if I go to a shop to buy myself a cotton shirt, it says made in China on it, what are the chances that the cotton in that shirt might have originally come from Uzbekistan?
It's hard to specifically say what the chances are for that shirt, but they're reasonable. As I said, 5th biggest cotton exporter in the world.
5th biggest?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in Bangladesh, for example, Bangladesh gets between 1/3 and 1/2 of all of its cotton from Uzbekistan.
Okay.
So if you're buying a made in Bangladesh shirt, it's pretty likely that there's a chance it's got Uzbek cotton in it.
Wow.
Some brands, we've been writing to them as Stop the Traffic and asking them specifically to take action to boycott Uzbekistan. Unfortunately, some of them have come on board. Sadly, not all.
Wow. Okay. It's the economic motive, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to understand why they wouldn't take it. Like, I think a lot of the reason is that they haven't gone that step of tracing their cotton supply and ensuring it's not coming from Uzbekistan, which is one of the big things we've been asking them to do. Just trace their entire supply chain so they know who are their suppliers and where they're getting their stuff from.
Yeah. Now, in the area of chocolate, we have seen chocolate companies being much more proactive about their supply chain and, having slave-free chocolate and that sort of thing. Are we seeing a similar trend with the clothing industry? Are there moves in a positive direction?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So Stop the Traffic and Baptist World Aid are really proud of the work with chocolate and the way the chocolate companies have come along. But that's taken a fair bit of advocacy. The clothing industry has been advocated along for like 2 decades at least with the Nike sweatshop scandals. And we have seen a lot of progress in that time, particularly at the final stages of production. I think since Bangladesh, you're seeing that accelerate again. But there's just not enough happening at the sort of input stage and the raw material stage. So while 40% of companies know all their final stage of production suppliers, it's only 24% for the input stage and a -7% for the raw material stage. So they're cotton.
Yeah. So some of these companies that you've listed here that might have an F grade.
Yeah.
It might be the fact that they actually don't know. It's not the fact that there's slavery necessarily behind
Absolutely.
it, that they don't know, and you'd be encouraging them to work on that.
That's exactly what we've tried to do. So our grades are a measure of their labour rights management system, not of whether they have slavery or not.
Okay.
But a better system means less likelihood of slavery and exploitation and underpayment of workers.
Now, just before we finish, Gershon, if I'm down at the shops looking for clothes for myself, how can I make a difference? Obviously, this is part of the solution.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of things to look out for. Get our guide, pick a company with a good grade. If you've got a favourite company, start writing to them. Even if they've got a low grade, ask them to do more or to do better or to understand what they're doing already.
And they'll respond to that?
They will. We've seen that companies are super responsive when the public are behind them, trying to get them to shift. And we don't want to say that these companies are doing a bad thing, because they're doing great stuff. They're providing employment and jobs and opportunities for people in poor countries. We want to keep them doing that, but we want to encourage them to do that well. And that's what we can do as consumers. So buy from the good companies, the companies that are rated well. Buy from the companies that are your favourites, but ask them to do better as well.
Sure.
They're probably two of the most significant things you can do.
Wow, that's incredible. Thanks, Gershon. It's just great to see that you have a heart for the poor, and we know that God certainly does too. So yeah, we really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ken. It was a great pleasure to be here.
That's pretty sobering stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But it's so good to know that we can do something about it just by the way we shop.
Well, yeah, it does take a little bit of time, to do the research,
Yeah.
to get the facts straight. But if enough consumers vote with their wallets and show that they're interested in slave-free products, well, in the end, companies will just have to sit up and take notice. So that's what I think.
I hope so. We'll take a quick break now. Back in a sec.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope. Visit hopeoffer.com/step beyond or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
We're going to start with some soybeans. Use some chickpeas, an onion, you have a teaspoon of salt, slice some tomatoes, slice some cucumber, some red onion just to give it a bit of freshness. So just make little falafels like this. They just smell amazing. Let's make our tahini dressing. Let's get in some tomatoes, cucumbers, some falafels. Drizzle some of this lovely dressing. All you need to do is roll it up and you've got a delicious lunch for your family.
Hi, welcome back. Now, Dora, I can certainly relate quite closely to this next segment because, honestly, quite often I find that all of us in my family end up spending our evenings, each of us looking at our own phone or our own laptop. You know, everyone's got their own screen. Yeah, we might be in the same room, but there's not a whole lot of actual family interaction going on.
Yeah, Ken, I think a lot of families struggle with this.
Yeah.
Let's see what family life educator Trafford Fisher has to say about it.
Now, today's an interesting topic, Trafford, and I think one that is affecting tons of families, not only around Australia but around the world, and that's the one of virtual parenting.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. We have parents who are so busy. Parents are just flat out. But the other challenge is the technology age. Gen Z, they're calling them, or what are they called? Digital natives. They're the kids who are born with a mobile phone in their hand. I had a friend of mine just the other day, Danielle, say that they had their mobile phone sitting in the bedroom, and next thing they heard some music playing, and they went in, and their granddaughter, who's about 2 or 3, had switched on, got the phone going, was listening and starting to play this game. They're born with these things. So the drama is for parents, as you're suggesting. You know, they're busy, flat out, come home tired. The easiest thing to do is to let the kids play the computers, watch the TV and go.
Leave them to it.
Third parenting, I think a friend of mine called it, the third parent. We'll let the third parent take over. Look, it's understandable, but the research is coming out saying, yeah, it's a bit risky. The kids aren't picking up the family values. They're sort of being taught by the technology. And that's always a risk.
What about connection, though, Trafford? Because, you know, we see a lot of research talking about the importance of physically connecting with your kids, having eye contact, having conversations. Where does that fall into all of this?
Well, I think we've got parents who are at home, but they're not at home.
Yeah, lights are on, but they're not home.
No, they're in the house, they're physically there, they're doing the dishes, whatever, but emotionally there's no connection. I think that's what you're correctly referring to, and that's the studies coming about depression for kids, not doing so well at school. You know, all those issues seem to be emerging where there's that lack of emotional connection, that emotional presence. So I think the parents are in the house and they're saying, hey, we're here, but we need to get the parents to say, hey, they've also got to find times to connect emotion with the kids, turn towards the kids, invest in the time. It's tough, but it's got to be done. They've got to find ways of doing that as much as they can.
I know in our household, Trafford, that was a problem actually for quite a while, and you know, I could not believe the difference in our children when we stopped and recognised that, and to see them just blossom even in their schoolwork. Well, Traff, such an important topic, and one I'm sure a lot of us are going to get something out of for our families.
Thank you.
It's great to have the doc back in the office, and today he's here to talk to us about vitamin D. Why is vitamin D so important, Doc?
James. G'day and hello everybody out there. Nice being here. Now to start with a kindergarten story this morning.
Okay.
A, B, C...
D. I got it.
Yeah,
Do I pass the test?
We're at the kindergarten now. We talk about vitamin D. Absolutely essential for sturdy, healthy bones.
Sure.
We've got a fair few bones. They've got to last for at least 100 years.
That's right.
Bones. And also, it helps, if we have adequate supplies, it helps prevent cancer and heart disease. Majority of folk are unaware of this. But my authority, of course, comes from Boston University, Harvard Health Letter, which comes out every month and which is extremely good update on all the information that we all should know about. Everyone out there. And it comes from America, Boston, the centre of the universe when it comes to medicine. So they think. So it's really Australia.
That's right. So not everything that comes out of the US is bad.
This one has to be good.
How do we get vitamin D?
Oh, what a brilliant question. How do we get it? It comes from the sunshine. Up there, the sunshine. UV rays reacting on the skin surface produces free of charge vitamin D, all we need. And you know how much we need per week?
How much?
20 minutes on the exposed areas. That's your hands and your face. And if you want to peel off, of course, run down the street, you'll get arrested probably. But that only 20 minutes, which is minimal.
But how do we balance this? Because we've been told over and over again, cover up, put on sunblock, the whole thing. This seems to be like a message coming on one side, get the sun and get the vitamin D. On the other side, cover up and avoid skin cancer.
Absolutely. Well, that is one of the problems because we are told to cover up. Now, I might add that even though that screening stuff does cover up and gives a lot of protection, a certain amount still does get through. It doesn't matter where you are. It does get through, and we do get a bit, even though we're wearing this stuff. So don't overdo the vitamin, don't overdo the skin sunscreen bit. But also, I think, and it's now recognised and recommended by the Harvard Health Letter, plus doctors all over the world, that we all should take a vitamin D capsule per day. The common one in Australia and all over the world is called Ostlin vitamin D. Just one per day, buy them over the counter, fairly cheap, and this was $49. Well, that's a lot, isn't it? Anyhow, that lasts a fair length of time. Depends how many you buy. And that, taking one of those per day is a big asset in maintaining your vitamin D levels.
It's really a matter of balance, isn't it? I mean, obviously you can get too much sun.
Well, yeah, Australia is the skin cancer capital of the world.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think I would rather just a little bit more sunshine rather than a handful of pills.
Oh, me too. Hey, stay with us. We'll take an ad break now, but we'll be back in just a minute. Father, I can't connect the dots through the little that I understand. What words can I say to reach you? How can I know that you are there, listening, hearing, caring? My words are broken, weak, and powerless. But I know your power is limitless. What can I say?
Onions add great sweetness and flavour and a good base to any curry. Going to add some ginger, some garlic. Look at that, nice and chunky. So we've got our spices, gives it kind of a Sri Lankan feel. Add some tomatoes, tomato paste, some honey. Roasted vegetables in these kind of dishes are always great. If we add some creaminess to it, and that dish is now finished, ready to hit the table. I recommend you to give it a try, and it's so easy.
Hi, welcome back. Now, the InFocus program has benefited considerably from the input of our executive producer, James Standish. He's been a host, as well as, of course, our regular guest on the Freedom in Focus segment. But there's one more very useful thing that James has brought to us.
Yes, his brother. In this next interview, Tim Standish shares some of the research he's put into understanding what he calls the genius of birds. Let's take a look.
And it's great to welcome to the studio Dr. Tim Standish.
It's great to be back on the set of Record in Focus.
Yeah, look, it's great to have you here, and you're flogging this DVD, Flights, the Genius of Birds.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, Tim, I thought bird brain was not particularly complimentary. What's all this about the genius of birds?
The idea about bird brains was actually made up by people who are bird brains, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Birds are actually incredibly intelligent creatures. You see things like crows doing quite complex problem solving. They also will use tools, some of them, all kinds of really brilliant stuff. And of course, cockatoos can talk, and so can a number of other parrots and minor birds. You know,
then there's the lyrebirds with their imitation.
Yes.
Any bird call or any even mechanical sound that they hear, back it comes.
To me, they're pretty clever at that, at least. But but the title of this movie isn't actually referring to bird geniuses, but the genius that you can observe in birds themselves, in their design and their behaviour and so on.
I was in New Zealand recently, Tim, and
I've been to New Zealand.
You've
too.
been there?
Yes, I've heard of New Zealand.
I actually stayed in a sort of a bird sanctuary, sort of interpretive centre sort of place. That was our accommodation. Okay. And there were the displays on the walls about all these incredible migrating birds. There was one, I think it was the Godwit's finch, I think it might have been, or I could be wrong about that. But it migrates from Alaska all the way to South New Zealand non-stop, and it's just quite a small bird. Yeah, incredible, 10,000 kilometres or something. Google it. I might be wrong about the facts, but yeah,
it's a very long way. Well, long-distance bird migrations are a common thing, a surprisingly common thing, and one of the segments in this movie Flight is about the Arctic terns, which have the longest migration that's been thoroughly documented.
Wow, travels from pole to pole.
Yes. One of the things that amazed me about them is in their lifetime they actually fly, back and forth between the poles repeatedly, obviously, enough times that if they were flying to the moon and back, they'd make it there and back 3 times.
Wow.
Quite incredible. So we actually have footage in there of them tagging them with these very special, really minute geotagging devices, which then allow them to follow their migration route from Greenland to the Antarctica.
So were you at all involved in the production of this, Tim? Or,
yeah, I'm one of the producers, and if you're brave enough and you keep your eyes open, you'll see me in there occasionally.
Okay. Hey, look, before we go any further, talking about it, why don't we just have a quick look at a clip?
Sure.
Check it out.
So you've gone from that one cell that can become anything, and 21 days, billions of different cells doing hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of tasks in the organism, the speed, the efficiency, the elegance of the whole process. What you're seeing is a mechanism at work.
That's incredible footage, Tim. How did you manage to achieve that technically?
Well, actually, it's a combination of animation and footage that we shot in my lab. And as you can imagine, it took us quite a while to figure out exactly how we could do it.
How to get a camera inside an egg effectively.
Yes, you can't really put a camera inside an egg. And there are also problems with contrast and things like that we had to overcome to do it. So it was an enjoyable technical challenge, and pretty amazing for me. I've studied embryology and so on as a student, and actually taught developmental biology, but I've never really had a crack at solving that problem before. So it was fun to do it for the film.
Now, the film's title itself is Flight, and are you looking at the sort of the engineering behind Flight? Because it's a minor miracle, well, a major miracle, really, isn't it? Really,
it took us a while to work it out, didn't it?
It did.
And we can only do it with some kind of mechanical help along the way. Yes, the engineering that you see in birds is absolutely incredible. One of my favorite things, and it's easy to understand, is just what's going on with their flight muscles. There's an awful lot of other stuff, but you have the muscles that pull the wing down here in the front, the pectoralis.
The pecs.
Yes, but you also have the muscles that pull the wings up. They're also here in front, which is one of those great design features of birds. Yes, it's sort of a pulley system
Quite
that pulls the
counterintuitive,
wing. Pulls the wing back up. But that's one of the things that keeps the center of mass where you need it, so that they're not, if you put the weight at the back, it's going to be going up like this and not flying.
If you put too much muscles on the back, they're upside down. And
it's just a very, very elegant solution to a technical problem. One of the birds that we have a segment about in there are hummingbirds, and they fly completely differently from all other birds.
Oh, wow.
And we talk a little bit about some of the great sort of engineering that's there, but the thing that fascinates me the most about them is their tongue.
Yeah.
Hummingbirds, they drink nectar out of flowers, and you'd think that they were just sort of sticking their tongue down there and somehow or other lapping it up, but the mechanism is actually far more elegant. And we have some nice footage and some nice animation showing how that works.
Okay. So Illustra Media, Tim, is this? I haven't heard of this group before. Is this a cover for some conspiracy that you're pushing?
Yeah. Are they associated with the Illuminati or something like that?
Yeah.
No, this is just a production company. They're in Southern California. It's not associated with any church or anything like that.
Okay.
Obviously, most of us who are involved in various ways are Christians in some way.
Mm-hmm. So is this the sort of film that I'll buy it for my friends and say, here you go, this is a great nature movie, and they're watching, and then suddenly, Ecclesiastes 15
Genesis 1
comes up on the screen, and they feel like they've been the bait and switch method has been used on them.
I don't think so.
Sorry, that's cruel to say that, but it does happen
sometimes those sorts of things happen. Those of us who are Bible-believing Christians, we're interested in nature because we believe God created it, and it's a beautiful thing. The Bible encourages us to look at nature and appreciate it. So that would be the major motivation, I think, for Christians. The only quotes in there, we start out with a quote from Voltaire, and then William Blake, English poet, right, and Francis Crick, the Nobel Prize-winning English scientist.
I'm glad you told me who he was, because I've never heard of him.
Watson and Crick, they figured out that double helical structure of
Okay,
DNA. Yeah,
wow, okay. Incredible.
Very nice fellow too.
All right.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in science, if you're interested in natural history, if you're interested in, I guess, just beauty, natural beauty, that's probably, what gets me, the aesthetic side. This obviously would be a great film to grab. What's the best way to go about it?
Well, I would start by going to the Hope Store.
Hopeshop.com?
Hopeshop.com,
okay.
Yes. And if there's a problem there, certainly you can just go to illustramedia.com and you can buy it through there, but then it'll come from the United States. So hopeshop.com is probably the best place.
In the first place? There you go. Well, those websites are right there on your screen. Check it out. Hey, thanks so much for your time, Tim.
Thanks so much for having me.
There's some pretty amazing information in that interview, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was.
And even that was just a little taste of what's on the DVD.
Oh, look, I'd say that DVD is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, that's it for this week's program. Thanks for your company. We'll see you next time.
Don't forget to stay in touch. God bless.